Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have a really fun show for you this week. So many of my favorite labels are on the show, including the Criterion Collection, Deaf Crocodile, 88 Films, Eureka, Severin. So many titles to dig into. I'll try to give as broad of an overview as possible while still giving you everything you need to know. But if you need a little bit more of a deep dive, check out GeekVibesNation.com within a few weeks of this episode going live, and I should have a written review of most of the titles featured on this show that goes a little bit deeper into the audiovisual and special features and all that kind of good stuff. I appreciate anyone who continues to come check out the show. If you want to support us, make sure to check out the links in this episode's description to pick up any title that I talk about that you might want to add to your collection. It doesn't cost you anymore, but if you use our links, it does help support us just a little bit, and every little bit really helps. But if not, I'm glad to have you on board just for this journey through physical media, which I will start right now with a brand new release, brand new from theaters. It's from A24. It is The Smashing Machine, featuring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt. Dwayne is playing UFC pioneer Mark Kerr, a real life figure who had his ups and downs, which this film definitely chronicles. And it's an interesting story. It's directed by Benny Safdie, who previously with his brother Josh directed like Uncut Gems and Good Times and everything. As most of you probably know, the Safdies split apart and started doing their own things in the recent years. So they both released titles. This was last year. This was Benny's, and Josh was Marty Supreme, which hopefully we'll be talking about here in a few weeks when that 4K debuts from A24. But The Smashing Machine didn't get quite as much critical or awards love as Marty Supreme, but I still think it's a pretty decent movie. I think what kind of holds us back is since this is dealing with a real life person, there's only so much you can do within that kind of the conventions of like a biopic, kind of telling kind of like the rise and slight downfall and kind of rise back up of these characters. So kind of slots into some of those sports conventions and then like addiction conventions and conventions and stuff. So a lot of times, like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is really great in this role, and he really does. Well, I never didn't think it, like, I always knew it was The Rock. He really does kind of disappear into this role and really kind of makes you kind of shed any kind of preconceived notions you have with some of the other roles that you've seen him in before. He really, like, he's mainly been in kind of like blockbuster stuff over the last decade or so, and he's a global superstar. So seeing him go back to kind of these more like low, like kind of indie roots, like this is kind of probably the most indie he's gone since like Southland Tales or something. But I really like seeing him in this mode of just being like a real human character. And I think he did bring out a lot of depth to this character and everything. I wish the same level of depth had been given to Emily Blunt's character, who really just falls into kind of the cliches of just kind of like kind of unhinged girlfriend of the fighter who's kind of not really supportive emotionally of like his struggles, and kind of like really kind of just she's not really given much depth at all. She really just kind of seems very cliche and very kind of dangerous to his kind of like sobriety and overall health, which it probably wasn't exactly what reality was. I'm sure she was a much more complicated person in reality, so I wish the screenplay of this could have touched on that. But outside of like how it's handling of women, I think it's a really interesting story, especially how he bonds with his like kind of best friend and kind of partner throughout this kind of whole saga, who I believe is a real life fighter. He's I'm pretty sure is a non-actor, but he does an amazing job in this movie. And I was much more invested in Mark's relationship with his friend than his girlfriend, and I wish more of the movie actually been focused more on that relationship and maybe just solely on that relationship. But Benny Safdie, he does his best to bring some character to this movie. Just the kind of like the film stock and everything that he shoots us on. It is very gritty and raw and everything, and it does feel like just like a shaggy independent movie. But just with the script itself, I think is where it kind of lags behind and kind of doesn't live up to its pure potential. But even with that, I think The Rock is pretty amazing in this. And Emily does the best she can with a kind of threadbare character. But this movie itself, it's decent. It's not a bad watch. It's just not everything it could be, and it's not like kind of reinventing the wheel. But overall, Smashing Machine, pretty decent. This is a 4K release from A24. You only get a 4K disc in this release, as I showed off. And that does come in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio. It looks really amazing. It kind of all the gritty film grain. It resolves well. Nothing's clumpy and everything's clear, while still retaining its filmic roots. The Atmos track is like immersive and stuff when it needs to be, especially whenever you're in any kind of like convention center where there's a fight happening, especially with the crowd noise. That's really enveloping and really helps kind of sell the experience of these fights. And there's some good special features as well, including a commentary track with Benny. You get a making of, you get some deleted scenes, and some more featurettes and stuff like 16 millimeter like test footage and stuff like that. So if you're interested in kind of a biopic in the world of UFC and one of its forebears, The Smashing Machine, it's a really good turn from The Rock, and it's a pretty decent movie. So check it out from A24 if you are interested. Next up from the Criterion Collection, we have the 4K UHD release of The Blade, and I had a movie from this director last week, and I believe I butchered his name, so I made sure to look it up again this week. And this is from Choi Hak, who I covered with Shanghai Blues from the Vinegar Syndrome slate last week, but we have another one from him, and going a little bit further in his career into the 90s. This one is pretty interesting. It's much less comedic than Shanghai Blues. It kind of apes and kind of reinterprets some of the like tellings of like the one-armed swordsman story. You do get kind of a fighter losing his arm early in the story and trying to like seek revenge for people who he loves who have been wronged. And there's also some other people kind of like on the periphery. I'm trying to distill this as much as possible and not get into kind of like almost like love triangle kind of stuff. But it's a revenge tale, one-armed swordsman, very bleak and gritty and violent, and very interesting. And I think it really kind of strips down the kind of genre conventions to its core, and what Choi is doing in this particular iteration, I find very, it's adhering a bit to kind of the legacy of this genre, but while still learning or like kind of revealing new things and really going further and pushing the envelope a little bit for more, just trying to find new things to kind of unearth, and that really works in this context. And I think it really is a brutal but really interesting and entertaining watch. And I understand why the Criterion Collection, when there's been so many kind of Hong Kong films and stuff released by so many different distributors, that they felt the need to snap up this one for like licensing, because it does stand out in very interesting ways. And it's such a pivotal work from Choi, and especially later in this career, which he still seems to be going. It's just one that really stands out. And I think if you're a fan of Hong Kong cinema, and especially brutal Hong Kong cinema, The Blade is definitely one you'll want to check out. This has been newly restored in 4K from the original camera negative. It is presented in Dolby Vision with the original Cantonese remastered track. This Dolby Vision presentation looks very nice. The restoration seems to kind of honor all the natural aesthetics of the picture. It doesn't look overly manipulated or anything. There's a lot of dark, shadowy interiors in this, and the black levels hold up very well. No blown highlights. The encoding seems to hold up pretty well. There's no pops or anything in the audio track that I heard. And there is also an alternate English dub, but for purity's sake, I would just recommend sticking with the Cantonese audio track. In terms of special features, you do get a new commentary track from Frank Jing. You get a documentary, you get a video essay, you get a Q&A. Some really good work put in by the Criterion Collection. It seems like they are not one of the companies who are doing like an onslaught of Hong Kong cinema, but when they do, it's definitely time to take notice, and that's why people are so excited for The Blade. They've done a really nice job. So if you're a fan of Choi Hawk, make sure to check out The Blade. Criterion's done a really nice job with it, and I think most people will be very pleased with the results. And that is just our first stop in the journey through Asian cinema this week. I have several titles to go on that front. And next we are still staying in Hong Kong and going over to 88 Films with the release of Picture of a Nymph. This one is very interesting. It's like some more supernatural and just wild. I had to send a message to my dear producer and editor Anya whenever I was watching this movie, because there is a fight so insane at the beginning of this movie that involves an evil spirit fighting with its like hair and like beard and everything, that I had to message her and make sure that they knew that there was this should be on their radar if it wasn't yet. This one's a lot of fun. It goes to some really kind of like supernatural places in terms of like trying to help out kind of a trapped spirit and protecting her by like drawing her picture so she can kind of like stow away in a picture and be shielded away from all like kind of the evil that is like trying to hunt her down. And it's really hard whenever you get into some of these supernatural elements with some of these Hong Kong films. It's kind of hard to kind of like parse everything and explain it, but trust me that it all kind of it lines up, and it's very entertaining to watch. Some great fighting in this one, some good absurd humor at points. It just really kind of scratched the itch of what I wanted at that moment. If you want, like, there is some like really interesting and fun action, but also some lighthearted comedy and all that kind of stuff as well. And not only do you get all of that in some really nice packaging, the transfer is good as well. This has been given a restoration courtesy of 88 Films from a 2K restoration of the original camera negative. This looks very nice. I didn't notice much in the way of lingering specks of damage or anything. It's been cleaned up quite well and given a lot of love to make sure it looks as good as possible. The sound quality also holds up quite well. No like major like sibilants or pops or anything like that. The original Cantonese soundtrack sounds really good. You get 2 commentary tracks on this one and an image gallery. So if you like kind of absurd supernatural Hong Kong cinema, Picture of a Nymph, a lot of fun, worth checking out, and good on 88 Films for continuing to just deliver all this like Asian cinema goodness, which I'll continue with my next two titles from the same director, from Mika Ninagawa. We have going over to Japan, Sakuran, which I believe, I should probably have looked this up, but based on context, I think it means cherry blossoms, based on how they were using it in the movie. But this, I learned recently while like browsing some forums that these special like OBI strips and stuff, like this particular line is part of their, I'm not sure if you can see it, Japanarchy line right there, which my next title is part of this as well. So this is part of the Japanarchy line. But this is a newer film. This is from the 2000s, and it's kind of like a punk rock take on like classic courtesan dramas, where you have a young girl who is kind of sold off when she is a child and raised in kind of like a high end kind of brothel, where she is kind of like the kind of assigned to kind of like a high-ranking member of the brothel, to kind of like learn from her and do like kind of carry out her task and everything, until she grows up and starts becoming a courtesan herself, and learning kind of the tricks of the trade and really becoming a star, but all the time really planning for one day get out of this situation that she is kind of forced into, and just because they kind of drill in the point that like even if she did get outside, and if she wasn't hunted down by the people who now own her, like it's not really much of a life outside of the wall for her either, as like a young girl with like no real prospects and stuff. But that's kind of, I saw people at some points kind of comparing this to kind of like Marie Antoinette, where you do have like some more kind of like modern sensibilities injected into this classic story, like I was saying, kind of like a punk rock sensibility, especially with some of the music at times. But it does kind of bring that kind of old school tale of just like a woman being forced into a life of like carnal pleasure and sexuality and everything, but trying to kind of reclaim her life for herself and everything. But I think it's handled really well. The lead actress here, she does a really nice job. And even though there are some conventional beats throughout, I think that it twists it on its head enough to kind of make it interesting. And overall, I like that this was told through a female filmmaker on this particular instance, and just how that kind of like shifted the sensibilities a little bit enough to make it not as sleazy as some of these stories I've seen in the past. This has been given an HD transfer that looks nice. No major detractions from the image quality or anything. Everything seemed to hold up pretty well. And you have a 5.1 and the original stereo track. Both of these sound nice and everything. I mostly stuck with the original track, but the expansion of the 5.1 holds up pretty well. You do get a commentary track, you get a 22-minute intro from a Japanese film expert, and then a gallery. So if you like more modern Japanese cinema, like 2000 Japanese cinema, with a more of like kind of a forward-thinking sensibility, Sakuran, worth checking out. And this same director you will see again, being even more kind of in your face, and like this is more of a modern flick. This is Helter Skelter, once again a part of the Japanarchy line, which I'll take out that OBI strip now so you can kind of see the full artwork. This is kind of a critique of kind of like modern like influencer culture and kind of like celebrity culture, the kind of desire for people to stay youthful and what people have to subject themselves to in order to be kind of the on top in people's kind of consciousness. So you have our lead actress here like undertaking like a lot of like illegal like plastic surgery, and then soon like when it starts to kind of falter and kind of like shine through in various like body horror-esque ways, it kind of like you see her world start to crumble and everything. So it's not subtle and it's not perfect, but it's definitely interesting how it's kind of like executed. Just like it's as subtle as a sledgehammer, but it makes its point, and it's really it's very hyperactive and very vibrant and bold. It's kind of like an assault to the senses, but not in a negative way. Just in the way it approaches you. You have to be kind of like fully on board for a very kind of like in your face presentation. As you can kind of probably tell from this cover art, there's a lot going on, and this really, I think it's really kind of connects to the sensibilities of the movie. So if you want kind of a more of an overwhelming sensorial experience, check out Helter Skelter. This, like I said, once again from Mika Ninagawa. She's a very interesting director, and I look forward to checking out more from her. But just from these two films back to back, definitely an interesting sensibility and very combative, but in a good way, and worth checking out. This has been given an HD transfer, and it looks nice. And once again, no digital shortcomings, no artifacting, no deficiencies in the audio track. Everything seems really solid from this HD master. Once again, 5.1 and a stereo soundtrack. You get a commentary track, interviews, behind the scenes footage, a press conference, like Q&A. You get an opening day, like kind of speech from the premiere of the movie. You get other kind of featurettes as well. So yeah, if you are kind of more interested in like a Japanese film critiquing celebrity culture, Helter Skelter, worth checking out. Very overwhelming, but worth checking out. Sticking in Japan, but heading over to Cult Epics, we had the 4K release of the original 1982, I believe, 83 version of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I had only seen the anime version of this story, which this was adapted from a novel, I believe from the 60s. So that's a cover, and then there's one of the cover arts underneath. So seeing this adapted into live action, which I didn't know existed before this was announced, was an interesting experience. I think I do, just because I love animation so much, I do think I prefer the anime version a little bit more, but I still think this is quite interesting. And I'm glad that Cult Epics brought this onto my radar. So kind of show off the interior here. It's a story kind of very broadly of like a girl who one day like kind of like passes out in a lab, and then shortly after starts first I want to note like all of this is in Japanese in the booklet, so a lot of it like people won't be able to kind of translate themselves, but I'm glad that they did include a booklet, and you can make the effort to translate it if you want to, but there's some interesting things in here and everything. But so a girl kind of becomes unstuck in time a little bit. There's like this preceded Groundhog Day, but you'll see elements of that, like with a girl trying like reliving certain days, and this all kind of tying into this love story, which you like she starts to fall in love, but then you kind of learn some of the tragic backstory to everything and how it all kind of like it's not in the grand scheme of things necessarily a love story. It is really kind of a meditation more on like loneliness and getting over like tragedy and kind of reckoning with like your reality that you're dealt with and trying to move on and like figure your world out and your place in it and stuff. But it's really well done. There are definitely some interesting implementations of special effects in here, which video quality wise, it's like obviously kind of like you'll see kind of the limitations of whenever these special effects of like time like being unstuck in time and just kind of the rear projection kind of stuff going on. It doesn't look like as polished as modern special effects, but I appreciate that kind of like old school special effects charm, and how it was implemented and everything. It really pleased me, and I thought it was fun. But this is the most recent in a series of movies. I'm gonna butcher this. Nobuhiko Obayashi. I believe he did The Island Closest to Heaven and stuff, and his motorbike, Her Island, if I'm not mistaken. But Cult Epics has been releasing a lot by Obayashi, and this is a really good release that they put a lot of care into. This is a 4K release, as I mentioned, from a 4K restoration in HDR10. It looks quite nice. I think the opening and closing, stylistically, how it's presented, looks a little bit weaker than the rest of the movie. It doesn't look horrible, but just how the movie presents it in kind of like a very special way. It doesn't kind of open up to the more visual brilliance that you'll get throughout the more meat of the movie, instead of like the first and last like 5 minutes of the movie. But looks really good overall, I think. Not much in the way of digital manipulation. It doesn't seem to have any major damage or anything like that. The HDR10 seems to work well with it. The more psychedelic, colorful elements and stuff, it kind of holds up pretty well. And everything within this movie seems to kind of like be accurate to how it's supposed to look, and like I said, in terms of visual effects and everything, things that maybe weren't exactly polished at the time don't look any more polished than they are now. But yeah, everything looks and sounds pretty good. You do get some special features, including a commentary track, visual essay, a conversation, some more interviews, and other featurettes. So Cult Epics and their release of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Make sure to check that out. If you are a fan, like a big fan of the anime, I think it's worth checking out to see how it adapts to live action. And getting it on 4K is definitely a way to do that. So Cult Epics release of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Check it out if you are interested in checking out a live action adaptation of the source material. My final foray into Asian cinema, sticking out in Japan, is from Eureka and their release of Cruel Tale of Bushido. This was a movie that kind of made me mad, but I think it was supposed to because it has cruel in the title. But this is a tale about it begins kind of more in the modern era. This was released in the 60s. This was, I believe, 63. It starts in the modern era where the girlfriend of our main character is like being rushed to the hospital, and you don't really quite know what's going on, but while he's waiting to figure out if his significant other is going to make it, he starts kind of going through this recently unearthed kind of like book of his family history, and this family history goes back decades and decades and generations. And so it's just this man reading through his family history, which is very bleak, and seeing how different generations have kind of took to the idea of honor and like loyalty to kind of like the rulers of the time and everything. So this covers about a span of 350 years, I believe it says. And you just see a lot of people whose lives are kind of ruined for being kind of like loyal to people, like, oh, like he is our lord, so we have to be loyal to him. We honor him by like doing this thing for him. And a lot of times it does not work out for a lot of people. There's a lot of beheadings, there's a lot of sexual assault, there's just a lot of just like cruelty throughout, especially certain leaders. Like some of them are benevolent, but then others are patently not. There's especially one that I'm thinking of kind of that seems to relish in the cruelty and kind of like making characters do things unwittingly and then like revealing that they've done something that they just cannot live with. And it's just like wild stuff. But even more kind of like low key cruelty that happens in this is just like it. It was really just like making my blood pressure boil, because I'm just like, and especially some of the characters' reactions to things that happen, blowing my mind. Like I just gotta say, like, this type of loyalty and honor and stuff, like, fuck honor. I do not like. I just cannot wrap my head around, like, I do not care about being like honorable in that way. Like, I want to be a good person, and I want to be like a good person to the people around me, but like to like worry about if I've brought dishonor upon my house, like in that traditional way, like, screw that. I don't really care about that. So just like watching a movie that's totally about like people wanting to like maintain their honor of their household, and we got to do this to keep the honor of our household, I'm just like, nah, couldn't be me. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just made me like extra invested and irritated while watching these stories of these men who I just like could not understand. But I know it's history and like culture and everything, and it doesn't mean I hate the movie. It's actually a pretty interesting movie. It just like really made me angry. But it's a decent watch, and I enjoyed the journey that it took me on. So this presentation from Eureka is a good one. It has been given a 4K restoration courtesy of Toei. Black and white cinematography looks amazing. No major blemishes or anything like that. Everything seemed to look pretty solid. I didn't notice anything major get through the restoration gauntlet. Everything seemed to be treated with a great amount of care. In terms of the original Japanese audio, it also sounded like really good. No major humming or source pops or anything like that. Everything seems to be pretty good. And then you get you get a mono, and then what is advertised as a 3.1 track. I saw other places, like not on the menu screen, that says 5.1, but I believe it's a 3.1 track in a 5.1 container. And that seems to hold up pretty well as well. But I mostly stuck with the mono, but doesn't seem like the 3.1 track seems to be good as well. You get a visual essay, you get interviews in terms of special features. I believe Tony Raines is the one that contributes to this, and he's a Japanese cinema expert that contributes to a lot of these types of releases. Always a wealth of knowledge. So Bushido, the cruel tale of Bushido. If you also want to be irritated at these honorable men whilst like just going on this like horrific journey, pick it up from Eureka. They did a really nice job with this. Really great release for this movie that is it lives up to a title. It is cruel, but very entertaining. So check that out from Eureka. But after all of that, I felt we needed a little bit of levity. So going over to all three media's release of You're the Rabbit, which is a 6-part television series, a mini series as of right now, because I don't think it ever got picked up for a second season. That stars one Matt Berry, who to more casual viewers will probably know him best from What We Do in the Shadows, but he has a rich career, especially from like UK based comedies. And this is just another example, a more recent example. I believe 2019, 2020 is when it kind of premiered in the UK and then the US. And it kind of takes you back to kind of like 1800s era. It's kind of like a more comedic Sherlock Holmes. You have like Matt Berry as our detective, who is very like usually pretty drunk, but trying to get his shit together to solve these crimes. He's been assigned a new kind of junior detective here. He has like a woman here who wants to be a detective, who's like the like adopted daughter of the captain, who does not want her to be a detective, but she's kind of probably more observant and kind of like capable of doing the job than anyone, but she's a woman, so no one really like, everyone kind of just laughs at her and everything. But just seeing these three together, trying to solve crimes, and there are some serious moments. They take it seriously, but it also does have some ridiculous humor. And just like in the first episode they like go and talk to like the real life Elephant Man and stuff, and just some of the non politically correct humor that's in this, while still like also having some clever things that like aren't offensive. All of it kind of mixes together for a pretty amusing time, and definitely worth checking out if you like Matt Berry's other work. Definitely got my fair share of laughs, and definitely for the price that this is going for, I definitely felt like I got my money's worth for these 6 episodes in HD. They look really nice. These are all kind of like 23-minute episodes, so nothing's overly compressed or anything. No real much in the way of special features, but just having access to this series on disc is a win for me, and so I'm glad to discover this and on Blu-ray and be able to have it on my shelf. Really worth checking out. Year of the Rabbit, really good kind of like silly sitcom, detective sitcom from All3 Media. And to ramp up the silliness even more, we go over to Cineverse and their release of Lesbian Space Princess, which I was like sold on just from the title and it being an animated movie. I knew I'd probably be on board, and I was. So here's the interior artwork. This is a burn disc, so if your player doesn't work well with burn discs, make sure to be aware of that. This actually has a Blu-ray overseas that will be pressed from Umbrella, so if you import, you might want to check that out if you don't want a burn disc. But otherwise, this seems to be pretty comparable to that Umbrella release in terms of special features and everything. And they did kind of help produce the movie as well. So Lesbian Space Princess, it is a tale of a young princess who is living on kind of like a utopic lesbian planet where no men are allowed. She is kind of known to be kind of like someone who doesn't really like go anywhere. She's like very holed up. She's kind of like lonely. She's very desperate to like be with people, but she's just kind of thought of as kind of more of a loser. She begins dating this woman right here, and then at the very beginning of the movie she gets broken up with, and it leads down to this journey of like her being kidnapped and her having to break out of her bubble and try to rescue her ex, who thinks she can win back if she kind of proves herself more like kind of like capable of like change and everything like that. So it leads on to this like epic adventure where she is trying to rescue her ex, and then she meets some colorful people and interesting people. But it really is more so kind of like a journey of like self-discovery and learning, like kind of like that you are like the quelling of like self-doubt inside you, the little bit inside you that tells you that you're not good enough or you're not worthy and stuff. A lot of the film is dealing with that, but also very hilariously, I will say, like some of the humor and like probably the most that I laughed this week was from watching Lesbian Space Princess. So many like non sequiturs, and just like there is humor that is very obvious in its kind of execution, like just like for example, like the name of her planet is like a play on clitoris, and then like people like just kind of the obvious joke oh, like I couldn't find it or whatever. It's like, oh, if you know where to look and stuff, like kind of like a joke about finding clitoris. But like there's also other jokes that aren't as obvious that really made me laugh and stuff, that if you kind of more adult comedy related, like adult humor in your animated comedy, make sure to check this one out because it is very clever. And it also, I don't know her name, but it stars one of the young actresses from The Pit on HBO Max. So that's another like pro to watching this one for those fans of The Pit. But yeah, really fun movie. Very quick. It's like an hour and a half long. And the antagonists are the straight white malians. So just to kind of give you an idea of what you're dealing with in here. But if that kind of like description kind of like bothers you or whatever, this probably isn't the movie for you. It is very kind of like strongly feminist, but like very funny and just really good movie. So really happy to own this. Lots of special features on this one. You get a commentary track, making of, you get some auditions, you get some outtakes, you get some like music videos, just lots of stuff going on here. So Lesbian Space Princess, really fun movie, worth checking out for animation lovers, comedy lovers. Yeah, anyone, Lesbian Space Princess, check it out. While there was some risque humor in that particular movie, it wasn't the most raunchy animated title I covered this week. That would be going over to Deaf Crocodile, their release of Bill Plimpton's Hair High. We love Bill Plimpton on this show, covered all of his Deaf Crocodile releases to date. Glad to see Hair High be the latest one. You can see that come off here, and got some nice, this is a deluxe version, the deluxe box. If you get the standard version when it comes out, you'll just get this in the Skinovo case here, and you don't get like the booklet and everything, which I'll show you here in a second. But so if you've missed I Married a Strange Person, or The Tune, or the Alien one that I can't think of right now. If I can see it, Mutant Aliens. I see it on my shelf over there. This one is probably closest, I would say, to maybe I Married a Strange Person, but it is Bill Plimpton's take on like 1950s like high school comedies, kind of like takes on like kind of like Grease or Hairspray or stuff like that, but like deals with like the prom queen and the loser dweeb, and like the potentially like real like romance between the two kind of factions. And you have teachers that are saying wild stuff, you have horny football players, you have like diner owners that are all into stuff. It's wild. Like, it's Bill Plimpton. You should kind of know what to expect from him. I will say this is his most star-studded cast to date. You can kind of like, they show off some of the people. So you got like Sarah Silverman in here. Got try to go through some of these, like Beverly D'Angelo, Dermot Mulroney, old David Carradine, Keith Carradine. Got the late Tom Noonan. That was a rough one recently. Martha Plimpton. Just a lot of Justin Long. A lot of good names in here, and including people I didn't mention, like Matt Groening, Ed Begley Jr., Eric Gilliand. So good. This is in the deluxe edition, this booklet here with the essays and all the art and everything. But the film itself, in this Skinovo case, really entertaining, wild. Like, it just keeps on building and building as you get deeper into this story, and just like all the weird and wild Plimpton developments that go into it. It's well worth your time. If you gel with Bill Plimpton's sensibilities, it is worth your time. If you find him a little bit too crass, then definitely I don't think you should like keep on forcing yourself to watch his stuff, because it doesn't get like more like easy to handle, I guess. Like, he pushes his boundaries in the way that Bill Plimpton does, and I appreciate that. It's not for everyone, and I know that. But what continues to be the same is Deaf Crocodile's like attention to detail, and this is a really great HD transfer. It looks nice, and encoded well, nice, consistent line work, no compression artifacts breaking things up. Everything kind of flows naturally in the way that Plimpton does. Just really vibrant colors. Everything just holds up very well with this HD transfer. First time on Blu-ray, but not the first time on physical media. This was previously released on DVD, and Deaf Crocodile was able to port over a lot, not at all, but a lot of those original DVD special features, which isn't something they usually get to do, mostly because a lot of these movies haven't received like proper physical media releases in the US before, or just like certain stuff. But quite a bit of archival material is included, and new special features. So you get 2 commentary tracks. One is archival, one is new. You get 2 additional short films. You get some really insightful interviews. You get visual essays, and then just all kinds of like archival special features, like different tests of different things and everything. So much stuff to get into here, and just all put together in a great package. Audiovisual quality is amazing. So if you're a Bill Plimpton fan, I think you already know, you probably already have this on pre-order, but just if this is news to you, make sure to put this in your cart right away, because it is worth owning, because Deaf Crocodile always does great work. But not everything that Deaf Crocodile puts out is outrageous, but we are sticking in the realm of animation, and we are going over to Marcel Yankovic's Song of the Miraculous Hind. Now, I talked about one of his major titles last year with The Tragedy of Man. While he may be better known for like Son of the White Mare, which I actually reviewed way back in the day when it was put out on Blu-ray, not way back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, by Arbeus. This is closer to The Tragedy of Man, because The Tragedy of Man attempted to tell all of human history from like the dawn of time through the end of time, and every major milestone in between, which is why it was like 2.5 hours or so. But while The Tragedy of Man was super ambitious and fascinating, Song of the Miraculous Hind, it doesn't attempt to encapsulate all of history. It attempts to encapsulate all of Hungarian history. So stuff that people may not be as aware of if you're not Hungarian, but that's what movies are for. So you get to see all of like the major Hungarian like points of history through the telling of Marcel Yankovic and his gorgeous animation. The way everything flows from one thing to the next is just stunning. And there's just like pretty much any individual frame in here, you could just pause and just like want to hang that on your wall. Just like the gift that this creative is to animation is just cannot be undersold. I just loved watching this. Just like, even if I'd watched this with no subtitles, because it is a Hungarian movie, I probably still would have loved it, and I probably would have understood about the same amount, just because there's so much information being thrown at you. And if you're not Hungarian, you'll just be like, okay, yeah, I get it, but it's mostly just kind of like almost like just lay back and just like let the beautiful animation wash over you for the first pass, and then like whenever on subsequent rewatches, then try to maybe just dig into a little bit more of the history. But just it's an experience for sure. And if you just love like stunning animation, this is definitely one to get. It's just gorgeous. And this is one, I believe, the first Yankovic that's been put on 4K. So this is the people, the good folks at Deaf Crocodile, Dennis and Craig, saw the material that they had here, and they were like, yes, this deserves to be on 4K. It can benefit from the format. So they gave it a 4K release in Dolby Vision. Looks incredible. I love animation on 4K when we can get it, and it looks incredible. I loved how it looked in Dolby Vision. Everything just like syncs and flows very well. All the colors are as bold and distinct as they deserve to be. No compression artifacts, just deep colors. No digital shortcomings. It's everything you want out of a gorgeous animated film. And the soundtrack is similarly just like flawless. I didn't notice any shortcomings. And then you got the typical Deaf Crocodile special features, including a commentary track, visual essay, and interviews. You can pretty much count on that for like almost every release. But they're always substantial and they always give you something to chew on, and that is no exception here. Song of the Miraculous Hind. Even if you're not Hungarian and you're like, I don't care about Hungarian history, pick this up if you're a fan of animation, because just as a visual spectacle, it doesn't get much more impressive than this. Just the level of animation on display here. You deserve to watch this in the best presentation possible. Make sure to check it out from Deaf Crocodile. They're one of the best in the business. They're great dudes, and I just, every release that they give, send out every month, just a gift. And I can't wait for the next delivery, but for this, a great release from Deaf Crocodile. All right, heading over to Magnolia Pictures, and we got a new one for you. We got Nicolas Cage in The Carpenter's Son, along with Noah Jupe and FKA Twigs. So this is kind of a telling of Jesus in his teenage years through kind of more of a horror lens. You got Nicolas Cage as Joseph. You got Jesus kind of befriending people who are maybe leading him into temptation. You got just like, it's Jesus going through his angsty phase, and just like all the kind of, it's drawing on like kind of apocryphal like tales from the Bible and everything. I think if people kind of go into this like with judgments and like already made, they will probably be very upset about some of the things that happen in this. But if you like dig into kind of the core stories within the Bible, you'll probably notice that it's not too far off from a lot of things that do happen in there. But you have Nicolas Cage just keeping it muted for a good portion of the movie, and then just like things really take a turn in the final act in a way that I enjoyed. It's not a perfect movie, and I think it is a little bit overly ambitious, and it doesn't always connect where it's wanting to. But as kind of like a biblical horror film, I think it mostly gives you what you want. And I think I love an ambitious movie, and I love Nicolas Cage whenever he's really going for it. And like I said, he doesn't go for it the entire movie, but when he does let out his full cageness, it's a lot of fun, and it's not as horrific as like certain other horror movies, but I would still classify it as a horror movie, and it's definitely unsettling, and as religion often is. But it's a flawed movie, but very interesting, and overall I did quite enjoy it. Carpenter's Son. And yeah, it's worth checking out, kind of making your own decisions, because I think given the topic like of religious horror, definitely going to be a lot of polarizing responses. But check it out for yourself, see how you feel about it. If you want to check it out on Blu-ray, it's a really good Blu-ray presentation. Video quality is nice, no major like banding or anything like that. If this ever did get a 4K release, that'd be really cool, but as is, it's a really solid Blu-ray disc. Sound 5.1 sounds good, no major shortcomings. You get some deleted scenes in here, but not much else in the way of special features, besides like some very short kind of featurettes. But if you are into the idea of a religious horror film starring Nicolas Cage, make sure to check out Carpenter's Son. Good release from Magnolia Pictures. Wild movie, but in a real fun way. Also from Magnolia Pictures is the documentary It's Never Over, Jeff Buckley, about the musician Jeff Buckley. Now, I feel shame in my heart that even as a huge music fan, I worked in the music business some years ago. I never really listened to Jeff Buckley much outside of his gorgeous Hallelujah cover. So I did kind of feel like I was going in a little bit blind to this movie, but I think a good documentary can help can hold the attention of people who both know and do not know the subject prior to going into it. And I think this really gave a nice overview of Jeff Buckley as a person, as a musician, through some of his own words, like archival material before he passed away, and through the people who knew him, like his mother and some of his ex-girlfriends, some of which are famous musicians, like Joan from Jonas Policewoman or Amy Mann. Then also some of the other people, like his manager and stuff that was with him at the time and everything. So it's a pretty well-rounded kind of look at Jeff, and you also get some like recorded messages that he left, so like you get his voice that way as well. And he's just a really fascinating musician, just like his interest, his wide ranging interest in like different music, and like how he really had a passion for it, and just like him having a father who also had some amount of fame, and how he kind of tried to um, not be compared to him constantly, and blazing his own path, and like having what many consider like one perfect album released, and never getting to finish his second one. It's a fascinating documentary, and I think it's told with respect, with love, and with a great curiosity just to kind of get to the kind of the core of Jeff Buckley. And I feel like they did, from what what I've learned subsequently and what I watched in this movie. I think this is a really kind of a nice telling of his life in documentary form. In terms of this Blu-ray presentation, looks really nice. It comes down to kind of the quality of the material they used, but most of the material does hold up pretty well. And so, even though like most of it seems to be from the 90s, everything is as good as it's supposed to look. And then audio wise, it also sounds good, 5.1 audio. You do get some deleted scenes and featurettes and stuff. Overall, good release. If you're a fan of Jeff Buckley, no reason not to pick this up. Quality presentation from Magnolia Pictures, and a good documentary overall. Staying in the music realm, going over to Universal in a much different capacity, the Benny Goodman story. This is a dramatized version of the life of Benny Goodman, just the king of swing, and just kind of like a Hollywoodized version of his life, and kind of how his music kind of clashed with kind of like the more upper crust sensibilities of the people who are used to like having like kind of like jazz and different kind of music a certain way, and then it kind of turning more like a more accessible, like youth focused kind of version of it, and like tainting kind of like classic jazz elements and other stuff, and kind of funneling it into kind of proto rock and roll. It's well done. It's like I said, it's more like Hollywoodized, like golden age, like sanitized. But it's fun. I really like Donna Reed a lot, and she's very charming in here. It's straightforward. It's pretty long. It's like just under 2 hours. But I think it does a nice job of just like setting up kind of the dramatic stakes. There's a little bit of a love story in here. There's a lot of music. Solid movie. HD transfer looks good. It doesn't seem to be a flawless transfer, but it seems to be overall good. Maybe minor specs here and there. Audio sounds good as well, which is good for a movie about a musician. No special features, but just having this on HD, I think, will be a win for a lot of people who like Steve Allen or Donna Reed or the Benny Goodman's music. Make sure to check it out on Blu-ray from Universal. Keeping it mostly light, but with a hint of tragedy, going over to MGM and their release of Jack and Sarah, with my beloved Richard E. Grant and then Samantha Mathis. I just to tell the premise of the story, I mean, might be a slight spoiler, but it's on, like, you have to know what this movie's about. Richard E. Grant plays a man who, at the beginning of the movie, his wife is pregnant. His wife ends up dying, and he is left left inconsolable and like out of control of his life until he eventually kind of like gets his butt kicked by the people around him. He snaps in and starts to become more of a loving parent. And like once he gets engaged, like in becoming a proper dad to his daughter and like getting out of his kind of depression, he kind of has to figure out how to make his life work overall, and it eventually manifests in this American woman that he meets and ends up becoming the nanny to his daughter, but with some bumps along the road because some people don't want her to work in this capacity. And this is not Sarah. Sarah is the name of his late wife and his daughter. But there is some nice romantic chemistry between these two once it kind of eventually escalates to that. But you don't meet Samantha Mathis's character till about like 40-ish minutes in. So a lot of it is just Richard E. Grant trying to learn how to be a single father, get over his grief, and then eventually kind of like get out of that. And while that is very heavy, there are plenty of moments of levity and like raw emotions that are heartfelt. And then you also get aided by some like legendary actors like Judi Dench and Ian McKellen in supporting roles. And then plenty of other like notable names that people will recognize. But very heartfelt, like comedic in points, romantic at points, and just very sweet. And I did end up quite enjoying this movie. It's not like the best of like 90s like rom-coms and tragicoms, but overall it is very sweet and very much worth a watch if you want something that is more heartfelt, worth checking out. This isn't a MGM release from a more kind of dated transfer. It's not like super crisp and clear. It's not like horribly aged, but it's not like it's not perfect. But it's kind of what we expect from MGM's catalog releases. It does the job. It just could be a little bit better if they gave it a proper like 4K restoration or stuff. But as an older transfer, decent enough. This one actually does have a couple of special features, very, very like brief, but they are technically special features. So you get a trailer and then a gallery. So if that revs your engine, you're in luck with special features, but not much. A pittance, but better than nothing. But if you want the movie in decent quality, you can now have it on Blu-ray from MGM. And I don't think this was the most well-known movie in America. So if you were also new to this, just know these two are both charming and it's worth checking out. All right, we have a few heavy hitters as we start to wind down the episode. We got a couple from Severin, the first of which is the major box set of the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee Collection 3. So this is a collection of titles, curiosities and oddities and stuff, featuring the great Christopher Lee. Now, I had the first volume. I have not gotten around to the second volume yet, but glad to lock into the third one with a very wide range of different titles. So we have Beat Girl. We have The Hands of Orlok. We have The Virgin of Nuremberg. This is the one 4K title in the bunch. We have Arabian Adventures. Arabian Adventure, singular, sorry. We have A Feast at Midnight, which this is not Christopher Lee playing a dinosaur, I'm sorry to say. And then we have the documentary, The Life and Death of Christopher Lee. And I'll kind of go through all these very briefly. Let me set that. Yes, that is me dropping parts of the box. So first off, we have Beat Girl. I'll try to go over these pretty quickly. This is kind of more of your kind of like girl kind of acting out from her family, getting into kind of like bad girl rock and roll culture, and because her dad is trying to getting with a new woman, remarrying, and that woman kind of has a past, and it involves like prostitution and stripping and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like a musical bad girl club movie. So I enjoyed it pretty well. We got next The Hands of Orlok. This one's more kind of like right down the middle in terms of plot. It's about a man who gets in an accident. He's a famed pianist. He's taken to kind of like a more forward-thinking doctor who may or may not have replaced his hands with the hands of a killer, and like he starts maybe losing control of his hands, or is it all in his mind? Who knows? You have to watch to find out. Next up, we have The Virgin of Nuremberg. This is your kind of like typical kind of like haunted house, or like creepy gothic house with like a masked killer. There's secrets and stuff. There's like sexual undertones. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. But if you like masked freaks, Virgin of Nuremberg, check it out. Then we have two from the Severin Kids lines. So if you want more family-friendly stuff, Arabian Night. This is about like kind of tales of like street urchins kind of discovering like magical amulets, and Christopher Lee plays like a very evil person who's trying to wipe out all who oppose him, who might be more powerful than him. There's different genies and stuff. There's all kinds. It's like kind of like the Thief of Baghdad kind of updated. Pretty decent for like a more younger set. And speaking of, we also have A Feast at Midnight, which Christopher Lee plays kind of like a hard-edged teacher at a boarding school, in which the kids try to rebel by like trying to start a club where they like cook actually some good food in the middle of the night, and that's their like little form of rebellion and stuff. And then of course you just have like a documentary on Christopher Lee, which like, yes, give me a documentary on Christopher Lee and I'll be happy, and which I am with this one. It is fun. So overall, really wide range of movies, and they're all entertaining in their own way. I'm not sure which one. Like, I don't want to say I just like the traditional like Hands of Orlok the best, but I think it'll probably be the one that appeals most to kind of like hardcore genre folks. But I liked them all to a degree, and I actually did really like the ones that were more geared to kids, just as kind of like, I don't usually get that a lot from Severin. So just being able to experience that was fun. Really great thick booklet, as you can see here, with tons of essays and photos and all kinds of stuff in here. Lots of really good stuff in here. Look how thick that is. It's incredible. If you're a Christopher Lee fan, I think you will be in heaven with this release. Severin has treated this very well. No reversible cover art on these individual releases, but all of these fit nicely into this box set. So Severin has been given all of these new restorations, except for the documentary, because that's a brand new documentary, doesn't need a restoration. But I'll try to go through these pretty quickly. So Beat Girl, you get the original and the extended UK cut of the movies from a 4K scan, courtesy of the BFI. You get, for The Hands of Orlok, you get a French and UK versions of the movie from a 4K scan of the original camera negative for the UK version, and then the French version is an HD master that was supplied from the rights holder. So not quite as strong as the UK cut visual wise. Virgin of Nuremberg, that is the 4K Ultra HD. That's from a 4K scan of the inner positive in HDR10. Arabian Adventure, it's a 2K scan of the original camera negative. Feast at Midnight is a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Visual quality wise, I think all these look pretty good. Of course, the 4K, the Virgin of Nuremberg, is going to be the best looking of the 6 movies. And then the documentary is obviously has a varied quality depending on the clips that are being used. But everything looks pretty solid. Most of the major damage has been ameliorated. You won't see a lot of things that have slipped through the restoration gauntlet. And overall, I thought the encoding was strong. I think all these hold up pretty well, and it's a testament to how well Severin tried to treat this collection and the elements available and stuff. Everything seems to hold up really well, so I think most people will be pretty pleased with the visual quality. You get, for the Beat Girl, you get a commentary track, interview, and a visual essay. Hands of Orlok, you get a commentary track, interview, and a location scouting footage. You get, from the Virgin of Nuremberg, commentary track and interviews. Arabian Adventures, commentary track, interviews, another Zoom interview, and a documentary. Feast at Midnight, you get a commentary track, and then a life and death of Christopher Lee. You get a commentary track, Q&A, and some interviews. So loaded with special features. So many hours of special features. So it says 16 hours, over 16 hours of special features, which does include commentary tracks. But lots of really amazing things in here. That amazing booklet that I showed off. All the films look and sound pretty solid. Like I said, tons of special features. If you're a Christopher Lee fan, these are like, you won't just get one genre here. It's a wide spectrum, which I love. I love kind of like just like the different feelings of each movie. But all of them have Christopher Lee doing something interesting in them. So, but for that reason alone, worth getting this collection 3. Get all the collections, honestly. But Severin, they have been rescuing just these movies that you would never get to see elsewhere. Like, I was looking at like Feast at Midnight on Letterboxd, and it had like 30 reviews like left. So I think it's something like this that brings it more into people's consciousness and can probably get more people watching it. I think that's a great thing. So make sure to check it out when you can, from Severin. They do really good work, and this is just another example of that. But speaking of Severin and their impressive work, we have another one, which I included in my holiday gift guide because that's when the pre-orders were going on. But now I have it in hand. The Devil's Reign. Really excited to finally get to check this one out, because this one is insane. It deals with cults, and I'll try not to be, I'm not going to get too far into it, but if you want a movie involving cults, no reversible cover art here, a movie involving cults with like Ernest Borgnine, William Shatner, a young John Travolta, Ida Lupino, a good number of different people, Keenan Wynn, Eddie Albert, Tom Skerritt. If you want William Shatner versus a deranged cult with like face-melting goodness, The Devil's Reign will treat you right. There's so much weird stuff going on here that it's hard to just kind of like encapsulate it all, but it's wild, it's fun. Lots of different ups and downs that will keep you guessing and kind of keep you kind of just like fully transfixed. I really enjoyed this one. It's wild. And I like the cast members. I like the premise, and it all kind of works pretty well together. It's a little messy at times, but I like that about it. And if you like a good messy cult movie, you should check this one out. In 4K, you get a 4K scan of the original camera negative in HDR10. Looks really, really gorgeous, and sounds good as well. And you get 2 commentary tracks, new and archival interviews, and another conversation. You can get this beautiful slipcover that I've been showing off. I love it. Really nice quality. Just a really great release from Severin. So if anything I've said appeals to you, make sure to not miss this one. Devil's Reign. A lot of fun. Really unhinged, but in a good way. Check it out. And then finally, my final title is one that I was so excited to get announced from Sony. I'd been hoping that this would happen. Their Blu-ray upgrade of Cobra Kai, the complete series, all 6 seasons of the Netflix show, no longer just beholden to Netflix in HD, because they did release these seasons individually on DVD, but I was like, no, you're not going to get me. I think you're going to eventually upgrade these to Blu-ray, and boom, here we are. So we got all 6 seasons, and for those who waited, not only do you get these in HD, you also get some new special features, but I'll show off each of these really quickly. So this is all, I believe, 65 episodes of the series from all 6 seasons. So this, for people who have never seen it, it continues the Karate Kid story, in which primarily follows Johnny, who was the kind of villain, one of the villains of the original Karate Kid. So you kind of get more of like a other side of the story type of situation. And this takes more of a comedic approach. This show is hilarious, but then it also does have like a good amount of like heart and like character moments, and like just seeing how the different characters who, like, with the new generations, like some of them have kids, and seeing how like the younger generations intermingle and everything, and how old rivalries still linger and how relationships evolve. This show, it's hilarious, it's fun. You get old villains from movies that, even if they didn't like completely always work on the movie side, giving them more time to develop on the show really makes them more complex. It's one of my favorite Netflix original series. And I talked about the Karate Kid series whenever it was released, the 4K set back in August from Amazon. I was hoping this would come out. I was hoping it actually be on 4K, but on Blu-ray I think is good enough for me for now. If they did release it on 4K, yes, I would upgrade because I have a sickness. But this is such a great continuation of the Karate Kid kind of franchise. I'm not as into like a lot of like legacy shit, like legacy properties continuing needlessly, but they definitely justified continuing with Cobra Kai. It is better than the most recent Karate Kid Legends movie by far. Cobra Kai, so much fun, hilarious, action-packed when it needs to be. Tons of great, like, familiar faces returning. Just a great show overall, and glad to have it on Blu-ray. Like I said, all 65 episodes, 6 seasons in HD, looking great. Plenty of room to breathe with each of these discs. Everything sounds good. 5.1 sound. You get commentary tracks on the first and last episode of the series, I believe. You get deleted scenes throughout. You get tons of featurettes for each season, and bloopers and stuff, and other odds and ends and goodies. So if you're a fan of Cobra Kai, you can now own it on Blu-ray. You can celebrate alongside me and having it finally on our shelves. Make sure to pick it up. Fun show, great show, lots of special features, great looking HD transfer. Home run of a release from Sony. Really happy to have it. Individual cases in Blu-ray size. That's a huge win. It's everything I wanted. It's great. So that is my show. I hope you have found something that you're interested in checking out. If so, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're most excited to check out. I always love knowing what is drawing people's attention, what they want to hear me talk about. If you want to hear me talk about something specific in the future that I haven't covered previously, let me know, and I will be more than happy to try to seek that out and talk about that in the future more than happy to do that. Thanks to everyone who continues to support and tune in every week. I appreciate you so much. Make sure you share this with anyone that you know loves physical media or you think should get into physical media. I will try to tell them what they should be adding to their shelves. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. Make sure to like this episode. And like I said at the beginning, if you want to support us with no added cost to you, if you want to buy any of these titles, make sure to use our links in our description in this video. That will help us in very small ways, but very appreciative ways. But if not, I still appreciate all of you who tune in every week. It is so rewarding to have all of you here, and I will continue doing this as long as you keep tuning in. I will be back again next week with a brand new batch of titles. But until next time, enjoy these movies.